This is Secret Stories, and my name is Mary Cachapalia. Many people cannot be on camera because their employer, their family, their friends, or their church or synagogue would roll their eyes, ridicule, misunderstand, or even fire them. Secret Stories allow you to tell your story with anonymity. Here I read experiencers' accounts emailed to us at Breaking the Silence. This is the second part of Grace Clare's story. I can't remember how old I was, but I presume it happened when I was around 12 years old, when my parents and I drove back home at night. I saw a huge UFO with many lights behind old trees in a certain distance. It was the sound, a deep humming sound, that caught my attention. But when I looked where it came from, I instantly knew it was not so friendly UFO. The vibe that came out of it was pretty nerving altogether. I wondered why my parents didn't see or hear anything. I don't think anything happened at that time except my being aware of them. Years later, at the beginning of my waking process, although I have always been aware of all this, I put myself in a seat in front of the window and asked if they would show themselves. I expected nothing, just being open to what might happen. And then, 2 minutes later, there it was, in broad daylight. Above my garden appeared a round brownish color UFO. I mean big, round, and very materialized. It was flying very, very slowly, and to adjust, I let my brain take in whatever I was staring at. I mean, this is different. In my other life, everything is normal, like flying UFOs and being with different types of beings. But in human life, watching things like this is a bit different. And right away, my brain wanted to deny the whole scenario while watching it. I could not deny it. I denied it, back and forth, and finally my brain gave up. Okay, so that meant they hear me, and they're here. One night, I was in an apartment. I think I lived there, and I was on the phone with a friend discussing what I was looking at. I saw two UFOs flying with an enormous speed, the one behind going after the other. And right in front of me, he fired a missile, and the one in front exploded. Before I knew it, I was in a UFO myself. Panicked a bit because of what I just saw and asked myself in which UFO I was, the one who just exploded or the one behind it. Neither seemed to me a good place to be. And yet I admit, I do find myself in certain times in trouble, sticking my nose in things that need to be left alone. So I sighted and took a good look around, trying to figure out where I was. This place looked almost posh-like, quite luxurious, with a poshy figure sitting in front of me on his luxurious sofa. His partner was seated right beside him and seemed to me as being unconscious or asleep, which was the same with my partner sitting in a chair right from me, which I wasn't so happy with. So this snooty boy sitting on his sofa asked me what I was doing here because I didn't belong there. I smiled and said I had no freaking clue, actually, but for some reason, here I am. Still wondering which UFO this was, behind me, I saw some figures walking what seemed to be children, but I heard immediately that these weren't children. Oh boy, wrong place, wrong time. So this boy attacked me by sending a flame to my sacral chakra, done in energetic ways. I already was aware of and experienced, and because of this, I wasn't shocked. So I smiled, and he looked confused and fired again. I could protect myself, so nothing happened to me, and started laughing at him. Now he tried to put more and stronger effort into it without success again. He tried it once more, really frustrated this time, but I, here, went out. Like zipping out, happy I wasn't blown apart by the UFO that I saw in the beginning. The Arcturians are majestic and beautiful. One night they showed me something, a dream that wasn't a dream. It started with my being a small child. The planet was toxic and people were living underground. It was a very harsh environment to live in. I only saw young adults and children. From very early on, the children were trained as soldiers. They were bullies, non-empathetic, and not loving at all. I couldn't be trained like them. It wasn't in my system to become like them. I just couldn't, and because of that, I was hated and punished. Suddenly there was movement. A lot of people went to a big window to look up outside, the only place where we could see the outside. It was dark as usual, but something was to be seen there. So I crawled myself to the front, and I remember so clearly that I put my little hand on the window, and I could feel the cold glass. What we saw was a UFO searching for what exactly I didn't know. But I stated quite intensely, "Take me with you, I'm dying here." And before I knew it, I was in the back of the UFO watching where I just stood behind the window. I saw the people still watching and the dark, rough terrain and the red-black sky. I saw explosions from war or eruptions from the ground. I wasn't alone. I was taken together with 3 others, all bullies. When we took off, the door closed, or at least we couldn't look outside anymore. On the opposite side, other sliding doors opened. Long, tall beings, their skin radiating blue-purple colors, eyes black and big, but with great wisdom. I think I saw 3 of them, but there were more of them on the ship. They looked at the bullies, and then they looked at me. I saw a flinch of surprise of my being with the bullies, yet so different from them. So they took me away from them, and I stumbled, telling them I was dirty, and if they had water so I could wash myself. They very kindly said they didn't have water, but had plasma, and that there was no need to worry. Time skipped forward. They educated me on their ship, but left me alone as much as possible during the education, so that my soul wasn't influenced too much by their presence. Otherwise, my soul growth went very fast. When I was done with my education, I was a young adult and completely pure of energy. Now other beings came in to pick me up. They are the ones that are connected to the new earth, inner earth. This not a dream has strong resemblance with my life now, but also past lives. I think that they, the Arcturians, were part of the teachers I knew when I was a child. So partly this is what could literally have happened, and partly constructed as a message for me. My memories don't make any sense. One part is of peace and love, and the other is of fighting and dark stuff. I don't have memories of fighting anymore, but that's what I deliberately chose for now. Perhaps my story is a bit different than others, but I hope it can have its place. In this last part, I'm going to try to explain some things, sharing my opinions and views on what we call extraterrestrials. It's directly the hardest part to do, because what do we know exactly? We only know what we encounter, and then leave the rest. No story other than what happened. I have seen people getting lost in stories, made up or believing others what they think. Partly because of my living quite alone, not connected with other people, and with little to no family, I could spend my time educating myself to what I was looking for. The truth. Looking for the Holy Grail. I am what you perhaps would call a mystic, being spirit-led. This means I literally feel called to investigate what comes up in my life. So I went from philosophy to psychology to history, a diversity of religions, Nordic and Celtic mythologies, and of course, magic and spiritualism. To be met with many pitfalls, the lies and manipulation, and trying to figure out what was really going on with us. It took me years, and I can tell you I will need the rest of my life as well. Let me start by saying this. Once upon a time, a long time ago, we only had angels and demons. The angels were honored and seen as enlightened, sacred, and holy beings, teaching us about us. Later in our incarnations, we began to separate them, giving them other names. If we look at the Celtic mythologies, we see the name Otherworld, fairies, and elves, dark elves from the underworld, light elves from the upper world. The Nordic mythology places the light elves into Alfheim and Svartheim for the dark elves. Rudolf Steiner, with his anthropology, places the beings from the underworld in the eighth sphere, beings who lost their soul and cannot incarnate into live stream again until they repent. Although I don't always agree with Rudolf Steiner's teachings, understanding the cycle of incarnation is very valuable for you to see where we came from and where we are going as humanity and its development. But for now, I want to point out that this is one of my main interests because the areas are fluid. What we call now an extraterrestrial could be in fact an angelic being from our future coming from Venus directly connected to us through the Earth's incarnation cycle. This includes the Sun, Mars, Venus, and Jupiter as well, for example. We better say interdimensional beings. And let's not forget, we take out the sacred way of being and of life. There's nothing outside of us. The eighth sphere, aka the underworld, is interesting. Yes, absolutely, there we find the very ugly, nasty, full of hate, and everything is not love beings. But not only that, there are beings who would like to change it for the better. This has been going on for a very long time, since the beginning of existence on Earth. Understanding history and the cycles of Earth is basically understanding yourself, understanding your own cycle and place where you are right now. At least we start to get some insights, the macrocosm with the microcosm. Enlightened beings do not need spaceships. It is simple as that. But in my opinion, it doesn't mean that they are immediately doomed and evil. We don't know. We have no clue. Not yet. Even spaceships can look like that, what we think it is. But in our history, it was flying carpets or riding on horses through the air. So once again, I drop all the stories and go back to my own intuition. How does it feel? What do I see? What do I hear? And do I like it? If not, I have the absolute right to get out to never be seen again. We learn, but I remember one thing. There's a perfectness in this universe that we can never make better. This is the most difficult truth ever that I experienced one night, and this is the last thing I will share. One night I woke up. Something incredible was going to happen. I could feel it. So I sat straight up in bed, and although I was in the far back of my mind, still connected with my body, I was out of it as well. I was in the void, in space, the velvet soft black all around me. I felt the energies flowing around like water flowing through nature. I was so incredibly light. I mean light in weight, not the flashy white bright light. I realized how much weight we are carrying, not only our body, but also the weight of the earth, of humanity itself, and by incarnating into the earth, we automatically take on this burden. To heal it, to make it a bit lighter, not forcing it, just by allowing light and growing it into ourselves. Although there was no light, I could see the earth and all the other stars and planets. I was one with all of them. Then my focus came to earth. I could feel every stone, the water flowing through the sand, and I could feel and see the lost things in their perfect place as it felt like my body. Every single thing was and is in its perfect place, so perfectly. I knew this was God's hand. Only God could do this. I am not religious, at least not having any religion, besides my own path of discovery of self. And my highest self laughed and told me that humans think that they can make it even better. How foolish. They never can make better, since the place is perfect, beyond perfect. So tell me, if everything is perfect, what is the problem then? There isn't, because you think it needs to go better. You start to create motion. I speak about perfection, not beauty, because ugliness is present for a very good reason. So is beauty. Duality creates motion, creates you, creates worlds, and you're creating the universe. I'll leave it with this. It's basically a never-ending story anyway. All my love, Grace Claire. Thank you, Grace Claire, for sharing your account and your perspective. And thank you for sharing your accounts with us. It takes guts to share your account. When you feel ready, I will share your story for you. This is Mary Cachapalia. May love and light be with you.